I'm Katie Couric. They're getting more brazen by the day. Gunmen in Iraq kidnapped scores of people in broad daylight from the Ministry of Education. Tonight, why they're targeting teachers. They're in, but will the Democrats do what the Republicans warned? Raise taxes. Charles Rangel's in charge of taxes, and tonight we'll ask him. Elderly Americans abused in their own homes by their own families. What's being done to stop it? CBS News investigates.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Hi, everyone. Well, just when you think it can't get any worse in Iraq, it does. Today, teachers, scores of them, were kidnapped in the middle of the day at a government building in the busy center of Baghdad. There are late reports that most of the hostages have been freed tonight in a series of raids by Iraqi forces. But the kidnapping raises new questions about the Iraqi government's ability to ever bring order to the chaos. Elizabeth Palmer is in Baghdad.
At 9:30 this morning, gunmen in police uniforms raided the building and rounded up employees and visitors, claiming it was an anti-corruption operation ahead of a visit by the U.S. ambassador. The women were released, but dozens of men were herded into as many as 40 pickup trucks waiting outside. It was all over in 20 minutes. By the time help arrived, the kidnappers had vanished with their hostages, leaving signs of a struggle but few clues. As the police cordoned off the Education Ministry building, news of the raids spread to relatives who know very well what happens to most kidnapped victims in Iraq. Furious, Iraq's higher education minister interrupted a session of parliament to demand better protection for students and employees. And if you can't do it, he says, give me 800 soldiers and I'll ensure security at our universities. By sheer coincidence, just as the kidnapping was taking place, students at Baghdad University were out demonstrating for a safer campus.
We demand protection for our professors because day by day we miss many professors by killing or leaving Iraq.
Many students are now too afraid to travel to class, and more than 150 professors have been killed since the start of the war. This afternoon, in the neighborhood where the kidnappers struck, there was no sign of them or their vehicles. But hours later, reports began to trickle in that most of the hostages had been freed. Sources in the White House are now confirming that most of the hostages have been released, although there's no information on who kidnapped them or why. The Iraqi authorities earlier announced they'd arrested 5 senior police officers. Everyone here is deeply worried that a mass abduction on this scale must have had support from inside the Iraqi security services. Elizabeth Palmer, CBS News, Baghdad.
Earlier today, I spoke with Zainab al-Suwaij, an Iraqi exile who is executive director of the American Islamic Congress. She visits Iraq monthly and is working to improve the country's education system. The killing and kidnapping of intellectuals is on the rise. Since February, many professors have been killed. Some 3,000 have left the country. Why are academics being targeted this way?
Because most of these insurgents in Iraq, they don't want the intellectuals, and they don't want people who are highly educated to be there to have a functioning society and country.
Why they don't want dissent?
Well, they wanted, many of them, they want Taliban kind of regime in Iraq.
You travel back to Iraq every month.
That's right.
How are the schools and universities faring?
Well, most of the schools and universities are resuming their daily work, but under the fear. I mean, they don't know what in any hour of the day something will happen.
Since so many intellectuals have left the country, it's even called an Iraqi brain drain. How concerned are you about that?
Of course, it's really concerning. Many of these intellectuals in Iraq, they are seeking jobs in many other universities outside Iraq. And this is certainly is going to have a deficit within the education system inside the country.
As an Iraqi woman, do you feel hopeful or hopeless?
I feel hopeful. I think Iraq will have a better future if the Iraqi people and the Iraqi government put their act together and help each other to overcome this difficult period of time.
Zainab al-Suwaij, thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
And you can see more of that interview on our website at cbsnews.com. Meanwhile, many hope the bipartisan Iraq study group can craft a new strategy for the war. The 10 members returned to the White House today, this time to talk to British Prime Minister Tony Blair by video link. He told the panel that ending the violence in Iraq depends on getting Syria and Iran involved in the process. Blair did not set a timetable, though, for withdrawing British troops. Most Americans expect a withdrawal of U.S. troops now that the Democrats will be in charge of Congress, even though that's still the president's call. A CBS News poll out tonight finds 72% of Americans expect the Democrats to try to reduce the number of troops in Iraq or pull them out altogether. Iraq, like other issues we're exploring this week, is high on the agenda for the new 110th Congress. Newly elected members of the freshman class are attending orientation this week. They had their class photo taken today on the steps of the Capitol. Also on their agenda is taxes. What will the Democrats be doing about that? Here's our Capitol Hill correspondent, Cheryl Atkinson. Cheryl?
Well, Katie, with Democrats soon to be running the show on Capitol Hill, 1 in 3 Americans think taxes will be going up, according to our poll. But the first thing Democrats want to do is cut a once obscure tax that millions of Americans now know all too well.
Married with 2 kids, upper middle class, Patrick and Ann O'Rourke seem to have a very comfortable life, but their tax burden is growing, and come January, more than 40 million other Americans could take the same hit. The problem is they're forced to pay a sort of flat income tax called the Alternative Minimum Tax, or AMT.
Essentially, they say we're not giving you any deduction for the state income tax. We're not going to give you any deduction for real estate taxes. We're not going to give you any deductions for your kids.
What do you figure it costs you to be paying the AMT instead of the regular tax?
Last year cost me about $3,000.
Fixing the AMT, originally aimed at just the very rich, but now hitting more and more of the middle class, is the top priority for Charles Rangel, the new Democrat chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee. Think of him as the new tax sheriff in town.
Low-income people don't have to pay this tax. The wealthy already have their tax break. This is certainly a middle-income issue.
One problem, saving the middle class from having to pay the AMT would take revenue from the budget, lots of it, $1 trillion over 10 years, and someone would have to make up for it. The question is how. One possible solution, raising taxes for others. Rangel says he'd go after tax cheaters, close loopholes, and do away with targeted tax breaks for industries like big oil, which got billions in benefits written into the law in 2004. They could be coughing up big time.
Technically, if you want to pin me to the cross, it is that, yes, we're going to get them. Will their taxes be increased? I'm sorry. The answer is yes. But for the majority of Americans who work every day and want an equitable distribution of the tax burdens, they don't have to worry about a tax increase.
On a couple of other points, Rangel told me that the estate tax, which the Republican Congress temporarily reduced, could come back for the very rich. And also, he's not ruling out an income tax rate increase down the road if it's needed, Katie.
Cheryl Atkinson on Capitol Hill tonight. Tomorrow, by the way, we'll be looking at how the new Congress might revise the immigration laws. And later this week, we'll focus on prescription drug prices and the minimum wage. And the high cost of health care was one of the main topics when chief executives of the big 3 U.S. automakers met with President Bush today at the White House. The automakers say paying for their employees' health care adds $1,000 to the price tag of every car. They insist they're not looking for taxpayers to bail them out. They just want to level the playing field with foreign competition. Last night, we told you about a new campaign to get hospitals to treat heart attack victims more quickly within 90 minutes. But 30% of patients don't get the treatment they need within the critical first 12 hours. And now, according to a new study out today, the treatment they get later may be no help at all. Dr. John Lepuc has our report.
For cardiologists like Dr. Manu Rajachandran, when it came to the treatment of heart attack patients, one thing was always clear.
We as a community believed very strongly that an open artery was better than a closed one.
Doctors know that using balloon angioplasty to open clogged arteries and then adding stents to keep them open gives enormous benefits to patients if done within 12 hours of a heart attack. But for decades, doctors have worked under the so-called open artery theory, which suggests that angioplasty performed days or even weeks after a heart attack might also help prevent future cardiac events.
If you open an artery, it makes sense that you would do better than if you have a closed artery. It just biologically makes sense.
But today, at a meeting of the American Heart Association in Chicago, Dr. Judith Hochman announced results of a study that says, when treating heart attacks, less may be more. While the gold standard for heart attack treatment still includes angioplasty within 12 hours, Dr. Hochman's study of more than 2,000 patients examined the benefits of performing angioplasty from 3 to 28 days after their heart attacks. The patients were divided into two groups. The first group received the current standard of care, angioplasty and heart drugs including ACE inhibitors, beta blockers, statins, and aspirin. The second group received only the medications. After 5 years of follow-up, an unexpected result. There was no difference between the two groups in death rate, second heart attacks, or heart failure.
We were surprised at the results. We expected angioplasty to further improve outcomes beyond the medication therapies we have.
I want to emphasize, angioplasty within 12 hours of a heart attack can be life-saving. But this study does contradict conventional wisdom about heart attack patients who can't get angioplasty in those first 12 hours and should change the way cardiologists treat them. Katie?
All right, Dr. John LaPook, thank you. There is much more CBS News straight ahead. And still to come, a national shame. Elderly Americans abused often by their own families in their own homes. What one city is doing about it. Next.